Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful peplum top. Stay tuned and follow the process. I have drafted this pattern paper. Now I'm going to cut it out. So if you really want to know how I drafted this pattern, is on my previous upload, so check my channel to see how I drafted this pattern. Now I'm going to cut it out. After I've done that, I'll cut out my fabric as well. So I've placed the pattern on my fabric. I used 1.5 inch on the sides, so that will be my sewing allowance. This is actually to give room for future adjustment. And on this point I use 1/2 inch. I use 1/2 inch on the neckline, on the armhole point, on the shoulder point. I use 1/2 inch. I'm going to go ahead now and cut out the fabric following the lines I've drafted for my sewing allowance. So I've gone ahead to cut out my fabric. So as you can see, this is the 1/2 inch I was talking about on this side, and on the side I'll use 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. Next, we're going to be working on inserting the interface. So I'll take out the fabric one after the other, and then I'll show you how to insert the interface. I have cut out the fabric, as you can see, as well as the lining. So I also did the interface. I cut it just exactly out, cut the fabric so that it's easy to lay it down while you want to iron your interface. So I did the same for the front, as well the same for the back. So the lining, the fabric and the interface has been cut out. So what I'll do is to take it out and place it and then iron it. This is the back. As you can see, I've ironed the interface on the fabric. Remember, the interface is also known as the airstay. These are the front pieces. Now I'm going to be padding the bustier. Since this already have airstay, now we're going to be padding. So we're going to be using this fabric for the padding. This is like a thicker stay. So I'll place the pad on the bust area on both pieces and in the middle piece as well, and it will stop at the under bust. All I'm doing is just picking up the fabric and marking out the shape of the bust. What I'm doing here is simply marking out my under bust point on the fabric, on the white fabric. So I'll try and measure from my main fabric and mark my under bust point. And then I'll start shaping out the bust. So now I'm going to measure the point where the padding is going to start from, and I'll find a reasonable point and mark it. So now I'm checking the width of the padding. So I'm using like 3.5 inches. This is just to give, or 4 inches to give my bust a full coverage. So after that, I'll start shaping out the padding. So now this is the shape of the padding, and so I'll place it on my fabric to see the coverage. And don't forget, please, while you're doing this, always remember to leave 1/2 inch for sewing allowance, 1/2 inch on this point for sewing allowance. Now I'm going to replicate this padding for the other side of my pieces, of the front pieces. So I will just do exactly what I have done previously, just to put it on the other fabric. I'll show you how I'm doing this. You see, the two front sides are done. I'll pin this down so that I don't have to come and looking for how to place it again. So after pinning it down, I'll safe keep it and then go on to the centerpiece of the front. While working on the centerpiece, all I'm just doing is placing the fabric on the wadding and measuring the start of the bustier, the start of the padding to my underbust, and then I'll just follow the shape of the centerpiece. So I'll make sure to mark my underbust point. I'll mark that point, and that's where I'm going to be cutting from. So I'll just structure it out and then trim off. So now I'm going to trim off by 1/2 inch to create room for sewing allowance. I'm going to do that on both sides. So now I'm just going to go and iron this. Press it really hard with my hot iron. Press every part of it very well. So guys, I've gone to iron this and it's looking nice and flat. What I'm doing now is to just go ahead and join these pieces together. This is going to be the start of our sewing. So I'll just do this and then use my pin to pin these pieces together, and then we'll start to sew them. Now I have joined one side of this and you can see how neatly done it's been. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side of the front part, and then I'll stitch it together. So guys, see how clean the front is looking. I've also gone ahead to stitch the lining together. I'll move that aside and then start to work on the back. Moving on to the back, I'll place the pieces together and then I'll stitch this part together and also do the same on the other side. Now that the back pieces are stitched, I also stitched the lining, and now we'll move on to making our top. I'm going to be pinning the front and the back together on the shoulder joining using 1/2 inch, remember, as a sewing allowance. So I'm going to pin it down. I will also do the same on the other shoulder. Now that is done, I'm going to go on my sewing machine and stitch the shoulder together. I'll also do the same for the lining. Now I've done the whole stitching. I'm going to place my fabric and my lining right side to right side and make sure it aligns properly, and then pin it all down. So after pinning it all round, so I'll start from the neckline and pin the whole of the lining and fabric together, making sure that it's all properly aligned. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch the neckline first, and then followed by the other parts, the armhole, the sides. I'll do this all around the fabric. We've stitched them all together, so what I'm going to do is to start nudging around the stitches, and the reason for this is to allow the fabric lay neat and flat when you turn it over. Now that the nudging is over, I'm going to put my hand in, go through the back, and then start pulling it through the front. So I'll make sure I fold in the fabric while I'm doing this so that I can easily pull the back through the front. Now you're going to do the same for the other side. The same way you pulled out the other side, you're going to do the same now and then pull it out. So it's all pulled out, but I'm still going to use my scissors to try and push out the pointy sides of these clothes. Every pointy end that has not properly come out, I'll push it, but be careful so you don't tear your fabric with the scissors. So it's been ironed and laid flat. So I've ironed every side of this top. So it's time for us to work on the peplum end. So I'll show you how to cut out and join the peplum. So to cut the peplum, which is also the circle, we're going to be folding our fabric into 4. So like I'm doing now, I'm folding the fabric into 4. So bear it in mind that this is a 360-degree circular. So what I'm going to do now is I have divided my waist circumference by 6.28, which is what the answer is what I am marking now. So when you divide your waist circumference by 6.28, that will be your radius. So this is how to mark your radius. So after marking it, I'll use my curve ruler to draw the line. So we have just marked the waist. This is the waist circumference we are marking. So after that, this is what you're going to actually join directly to your bodice. So now I'm going to be marking out the length of our circular. So you can determine the length of it, but what you're basically going to do, since it's a top, is subtract nape to waist from your full length top. Also add half an inch for sewing allowance and then mark the point. So now I'm going to remeasure my waist to make sure that is exact waist circumference that I need. After that, I will now go ahead and cut out the flare that we have just marked. So I'll cut the hem first and then I'll move on to the waist and cut it out. So now I'm going to cut the lining using the same method, folding the fabric into 4 equal parts and then putting my main fabric on top of it and then trace it out. I'm just going to slit the fabric on one side. Please don't slit 2 sides, just folding it into 2 and cutting. Don't fold it into 4 and cut, otherwise you would split your flare into 2 parts. Now do the same for the lining. Now place your lining on your fabric facing right side to right side. So I'll use the paints to hold them together. I'll now go to the sewing machine and then stitch the hem. I have gone ahead to stitch the lining and fabric together, so now they are one piece. So what I will do again is to nudge around the stitches just to allow us to flatten it properly when we try to turn it over and iron it. See, the circular is done and ready to be joined to the bodies. So it's been ironed out. All I'll do is to get the bodies and be ready to sew them together. And I'll show you the process. Now fold your front and back together, and what you're going to be doing is to stitch the sides. So you're going to hold it down with your pin and stitch by 1 inch. After that, we will then stitch our peplum to the bodies. The size of the bodies has been stitched, so now I'm going to proceed to placing the peplum. So we'll use a pin to attach the peplum to the bodies, and then after pinning them together, we'll then go ahead and stitch them. I have gone ahead to stitch this, so now I'm going again to interlock it just to avoid the fabric from fraying. Now that all that is done, we're going to move on to fixing the zip, which is the last bit of this process. On the center back, I've used 1 inch for my zip allowance. This is the finished look of our peplum top made with shoulder dart bustier pattern. I hope you enjoyed this process, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hope to see you on my next video. Bye.